Good. Technical difficulties here. Apologize to you guys at home. You couldn't expect it to go off without a hitch because the Rockies actually made a move today. And they announced, or well, they haven't announced yet, but we've had plenty of sources, including Jeff Passan, Thomas Harding, Patrick Saunders, all the big people, saying that the Rockies are moving forward with a new head of baseball operations. Paul DePodesta doesn't quite roll off the tongue, but he is most likely going to be hired to run the operations department, according to sources with ESPN, the Denver Post, MLB.com, all the good ones. So the Rockies have a new guy in charge. Who is he? What are our thoughts? What are our opinions? What are our feelings? What are our reactions? That's what we're going to talk about today. We've got Spencer calling in because I was actually on the way to DNVR Broncos tailgate, if you guys can't tell, going to the Broncos game tonight. Got the news, made the pivot to come here, and Spencer is setting up the tailgate over there, so he's going to be calling in from the tailgate to give us some reactions. But I got to say, Paul DePodesta, not the name that I expected to see popping up on my breaking news alerts on my phone. But let's get into it. Who is he? Well, you guys probably know and have seen already who he is. Current chief strategy officer with the Browns. He also was former GM of the Dodgers. He's spent a lot of time in baseball and famously is the inspiration for the character Jonah Hill in Moneyball, which I actually learned today. I didn't realize that was the same person. A lot of differences between Jonah Hill and Paul DePodesta, but that was the inspiration for that specific character in Moneyball. So I've been reading some of the comments. I've been reading some of the reactions on Twitter, kind of seeing what people are saying. And I got to say, it's kind of mixed. And that kind of encapsulates how I feel too. I don't really know which direction I go on this. I think if you guys have watched the show before, you know that Spencer and I definitely put our purple tinted glasses on. We tend to lean a little more positive on the Rockies side. And so I think in this case, I'm going to be a little optimistic here, just given his track record in Major League Baseball specifically. But there are some concerns, and there are some, I don't know if I'd call them red flags, but there are some things that stand out to me, some decisions that he's made, mostly in the NFL, almost all in the NFL, that, you know, you could feel a little concern over. So I want to kind of talk about all of it. But before I kind of dive into this, I wanted to get this out of the way because I'm seeing a lot of people getting really upset at this hire, and ironically, a hilarious hire by the Colorado Rockies to, you know, be the worst team in arguably the history of baseball, and then hire the chief strategy officer from the Cleveland Browns, not known for being a very effectively managed and run organization in the NFL, but that's the Rockies for you. But I do think there is a very good reason as to why the Rockies hired Paul, and I also think if things go correctly and if there's some autonomy that the Rockies give Paul through his situation in Colorado, I do think this could be a perfect hire. There's opportunities here that could make this a really successful hire for the Colorado Rockies. So the reason like I said, I'm leaning a little bit more positive on this is because I want to start by saying this. I kind of want to push aside some of the NFL mistakes that he's made. Yes, he spent 10 years, the last 10 years specifically, in the NFL. Yes, the Cleveland Browns have been a disaster. Yes, he was, you know, I'm sure in the room that signed or made the trade for Deshaun Watson. I get all of the concerns from that perspective, but the NFL is incredibly different than Major League Baseball from a front office perspective. In the way that you build your roster, in the way that you spend money in the NFL is completely different. Obviously, we know there's salary caps. You know, I mean, the entire system in the front office organization of the NFL is very different from Major League Baseball. So I want to try to create a little bit of disconnect between some of the things that happened with the Browns and his time in Major League Baseball. That's where I'm going to try to take maybe a positive route with this, because I just think baseball is a different medium. Analytics plays so much bigger of a role in Major League Baseball than it does in the NFL. And so, yes, you can kind of make some comparisons between the two. Yes, it's still professional Major League, executives, but there are differences that lead me to believe that he just might not have been properly equipped to be a successful executive in the NFL. I don't know. Again, I'm choosing to look at this on the bright side for now. It's still the Browns. It's still the frustration that comes with that. It's still the red flag of, the Deshaun Watson situation. I understand all of that. But like I said, if you look at the baseball perspective of this, if you look at where he came from before he went into the NFL, there's some room to be optimistic. And if I'm the Rockies, a team that is a decade behind everyone else in Major League Baseball, from data, from analytics, from even scouting and all of those types of things, this hire makes sense. Because yes, although Paul has been out of Major League Baseball for 10 years, he was one of the people that revolutionized the analytics and the data-driven wave of Major League Baseball when he was with the A's, hence the movie Moneyball. He also has worked for teams that have operated with smaller budgets and found ways to be competitive with those teams that have smaller budgets. So for the Rockies, they needed a guy who was outside of the organization, which they got. They needed a guy who was analytic focused, who could kind of revamp all of their systems and their formats. They got that seemingly with this guy. And they need a guy who has had some success in Major League Baseball. And again, yes, he's been disconnected from Major League Baseball for a bit, but I think it's a good place to start. So again, I don't know the depths and the layers of Paul DePodesta. I've known about him for the last hour from a research perspective. So I'm kind of reacting to this in the same way that you guys are, but I want to just provide both sides of this when you're reacting to this, because this is an interesting move. I'm seeing a couple comments as well. Burge brings up the point they also need a GM, and I don't know if the Rockies are going to move forward with hiring a GM now that they hired Paul DePodesta. If you guys missed our show on Tuesday, I brought up the point, and this also came out in a couple other media outlets as well. One of my sources was saying that the reason the last two candidates, Saez and Foreman, backed out or rejected the Rockies' offer was because the Rockies were unwilling to allow a candidate to come in and hire new replacements and bring in new replacements in the front office because of the 2027 possible lockout that could be coming up at that time. If that's the case, I don't know if they're going to want to put a GM on the books yet. I don't know if the Rockies are going to want to add depth to that front office more than what there already is. Now, the Rockies did go out and say that they were planning on hiring a chief revenue and strategy officer. I think that was the term that was put out there. So they've already said that they are going to hire someone else within the front office, a job that doesn't quite exist yet. But I don't know if they're actually going to move forward and hire a GM. So that'll be something I'm curious to ask, because I'm sure we're going to get an introductory press conference coming up soon. The GM meetings start. What is that, Monday, Austin? You think is it Monday the GM meetings start? Yeah, Monday. So I don't know if he's going to be immediately leaving the Browns and heading out to the GM meetings. I would think that's the case, especially if they're finalizing the deal this week. They would probably send him out there to those meetings on Monday. But either way, I think we'll learn more about that as time goes on. I do want to recognize a super chat here from Lux. Lux says, "Not sure how I feel about this. I get that he's the dude Jonah Hill played in the Moneyball movie, but the Cleveland Browns have sucked for years, longer than we have, and the game has changed a lot." You hit the nail on the head there, Lux. I 100% agree with you. But with that being said, I don't know where else the Rockies would have gone. What other options did they have? Right? You had two very qualified candidates in Emil Saez from Arizona and Matt Foreman from Cleveland, who both backed out, or one rejected the offer and the other literally just pulled himself out of the running. And there were reports saying that you were starting from square one. There was, rumors circulating that you were interviewing or speaking to Adam Ottavino. I mean, it felt like you were back to square one. Now, I did see, I don't remember who said this, but someone did say that Paul DePodesta was in conversation with the Rockies from day one of this search. So maybe they've had him kind of under wraps this whole time. This is definitely an outside the box kind of hire. So it would make sense that they kind of kept this one close to the vest. But I see your concerns. I just don't know where else you go. Again, I go back to the pros of this hire. He comes from an analytics background, which you need. The Rockies, it's common knowledge. It's a household knowledge that the Rockies are the worst when it comes to data and analytics. He's worked on small budget teams before. He was actually mentored. I saw this from Thomas. He was mentored early in his career by former Rockies GM Dan O'Dowd, who was, in my opinion, arguably one of the smartest front office executives the Rockies have ever had, if not the smartest. I think you could put these two as two of the smartest, just from a front office executive, Major League Baseball executive standpoint, two of the smartest GMs the Rockies have ever had, at least on paper. So he was mentored by Dan O'Dowd. He's an external hire. And like I said, football is very different in the medium that it is than baseball is. So yes, the cons, the concerns, no success in the NFL, out of baseball for 10 years. The game has evolved for the last decade, especially after COVID. All of those are absolutely fair. But where else do you go? And, I think for me, the pros, the possibilities, for now, outweigh the cons, given the context of the situation for the Rockies. Given the situation that the Rockies find themselves in, being so far behind in data and analytics, being just so far behind in almost every aspect of their organization, that they need someone who has experience, who has a depth of knowledge working in front offices, who has at one point changed and revolutionized the game of baseball with creativity, with number-oriented approaches to building a team that didn't have a lot of money and was competing against big franchises like the New York Yankees. I think the pros, as of now, outweigh the cons, outweigh the concerns for me. All of this is still based around the idea of whether or not the Monforts are actually going to give Paul DePodesta the agency to make decisions on his own, to say, hey, this is now I've got the resources to do it. So it all relies on that. But I'm texting Spencer right now to call in, because we're gonna get some reactions from my buddy Spence. But it all relies on how willing the Monforts are to give up the reins to this guy, to trust that, hey, we just hired a very, very experienced veteran front office executive to come in and make some decisions, to fix the problems that we have broken as the Monforts, the problems that we have created here in Colorado. We're hiring this guy in. We're bringing this guy in who's got loads of experience. He is a baseball mind, and we're going to trust that he is going to make the baseball decisions, and we're going to let him make those baseball decisions. That's what all of this comes down to. Whether it was Saez, whether it was James Click, whether it was Matt Foreman, I don't care who it was. Even if, Theo Epstein came in and was the Rockies GM, it still comes down to that singular question. So we'll see if that actually happens. To be honest, yes, we've talked about the concerns with Paul DePodesta, but my bigger concerns, or specifically my concern, still comes back to the reason why, reportedly, the last two candidates backed out of the race. Again, if you missed the show on Tuesday, I had spoken to a source who was connected with one of the candidates that backed out between Matt Foreman and ALLCITY, and they told me that the reason that those candidates did not want to take the job as the Rockies head of baseball operations was because the Rockies, specifically the Monforts, were not willing to put new contracts to basically allow this person to fire or let go of any of the current front office staff and bring in their new people to fill up the front office. They didn't want to get new contracts on the books that they would end up having to pay come 2027, because there might be a lockout in 2027. That was concerning then. It's still concerning now. Is Paul DePodesta overlooking that? Is he saying, hey, this job is big enough that I'll manage that, I'll cross that bridge when I get there? Was that not told to him? Did he not ask about that? That's still a question for me. And I'm curious if we start to see more news alerts or less news alerts, let's just say, from the Rockies throughout the course of this offseason of saying, hey, so-and-so from the front office just resigned, or so-and-so was just let go, or the Rockies just hired this person in the front office. That's going to tell us whether or not they are allowing Paul to come in and kind of make some decisions early on. Because I think it has to start with the front office. As we all know, the foundation has systemic issues within the Rockies organization that have lingered for a long time. And that's why the Rockies had 119 losses last year, one of the worst farm systems in the history of baseball. You're not going to fix that this year by just going out and signing free agents and crafting a cool roster, right? We have to get the front office fixed. You've got to get the scouting department back on track. You've got to get the draft and development, data and analytics. You've got to fix all of that kind of stuff first. And then you can start to simultaneously build your roster back. And part of that also includes the manager. What does this mean for, the manager situation for the Colorado Rockies? Is Warren Schaefer more likely to get a job? I was saying this on Twitter too, and I think I hear Spencer calling in, so we'll get Spencer here in just a moment. But I was saying this on Twitter. Someone was asking me about the manager situation, because the Rockies are the last team that doesn't have a manager hired for 2026. Shocker. The Rockies haven't made that decision yet. But the Rockies still haven't made that call. And I was kind of thinking about it, and I'm thinking, well, if we're seeing these reports that the Rockies are unwilling to hire front office people for this job because of the lockout in 2027, that kind of leads me to believe that the Rockies probably aren't going to make a big hire for a manager this year either. And I'm not against that. I don't want to turn this into a show of whether Warren Schaefer is the guy or not for the Colorado Rockies long term, because that's a show for a different day now that we have a guy who's going to be running things and making those decisions. But I do think, given the reports that we've seen, it probably leans more towards this idea that the Rockies will probably keep Warren Schaefer as their manager. And that might not be a Paul DePodesta decision. It might end up being a decision made by the Monforts saying, hey, look, man, we don't have the money to hire someone new, so we're just going to bring back Warren Schaefer until after everything kind of wraps up with the 2027 season. I hate the idea that we're even thinking about the possibility of a lockout in 2027 being why we're making decisions today. But again, a topic for a different day. Do we got Spencer on, Tiff? Spence, can you hear me all right?
Hey, yes, I can.
What's up, buddy? Hey, congratulations. We've made it. The Rockies, I don't know if this is congratulations or not. I don't know what I haven't even talked to you about this yet, so I have no idea what you're going to say, how you're going to react. But at least we can say the Rockies have someone specifically who is going to be running this thing moving forward. It feels good to have a name now.
Yeah, we've got a name to the job, which is Electric. A very interesting name, a name that, is in the sports world, and we've heard of him. We didn't think he was up for the Rockies. What is the official title? Because this whole whirlwind, as just as you're dealing with, I'm working the tailgate here at the Broncos. I call Yahir because I'm like, hey, are you guys doing the pregame at the thing? And I hear Tiff, who's producing the show. Shout out Tiff. She goes, are you not going to be on Rockies? And I'm like, wait a minute. We did our show this week. We're good. Yeah. I know we were going to do emergency show if somebody got hired. I checked my phone. I got like 6 different texts. And then I'm trying to figure out who this guy is. I thought maybe at this point it was just going to be Adam Ottavino, because I know we talked about it, and he's the only name that we've actually heard be reported to talk to the Monforts or whoever it is. And so I'm like, oh, is it Otto? And then I just have no clue. And so now I'm trying to do research into this guy. Very interesting background. Of course, a lot of people are going to say maybe one of the worst ran NFL organizations that he's leaving to go to clearly one of the worst ran or potentially worst ran MLB organizations. Maybe he'll change that out. Of course, he worked for the Dodgers for a bit. An interesting strategy on the hire, but I can't say that I'm upset. I mean, the guy is Jonah Hill. The guy was in a movie. They made a movie about what this guy did. Like, come on. But there could have been worse hires.
It could have been. I actually think Adam Ottavino would have been a worse hire. And again, it's no disrespect to Adam, who was reported today earlier that he was out of the running or he wasn't being considered for the job. But it's, you got a front office executive. You've got someone who's got experience. The Rockies have so many issues. You have to have someone coming in here with experience. And whether you're choosing to look at his track record in the NFL and Major League Baseball, you can't deny that this guy has experience. And fortunately, he has experience in a lot of the ways the Rockies don't. And so that's where I'm like, all right, I feel like this is at least an opportunity for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a guy that, we kind of alluded to it either 1 or 2 weeks ago before we heard the names, Saez and the other names coming out and actually like being interviewed. We thought, okay, hey, what if they go to the baseball route? What if they go to the football route? What if they, just kind of shock us and do something random? And this guy's literally a mishmash of all of these. I can't find the word for that, but he's done everything.
Yeah.
And he's been in a bunch of different parts of the sports world. And yeah, we can look at the negatives that the Browns have had some questionable decisions, and who knows, how involved he was in making like a Deshaun Watson decision, if you want to go there. And the Browns are just not a good baseball, or they're not a good baseball team for sure. They're definitely not a good football team either. And so it's like, I, at least the name and the prior experience gives me a little bit of hope that they're going out of the box, but they're not going out of the box and across the street to hire a guy like Otto, who I was excited for, but then you kind of talked me into it of like, hey, maybe part a piece, and maybe Otto's a good piece, but this guy feels like he's led before, he's been in the sports industry, not the greatest track record in terms of the actual teams he's led, but I'm confident in his experience and the ability to, we don't know what this is going to look like in 5 years, but this is a guy that at least gives me a little bit of hope that he has the wherewithal to run the team and change the direction of not only the team, the organization, the players, whatever he's ended up doing. So the question I had, because I still like, what is his official title? What do they give him as a title? Who's
I don't
right
know
in
yet because the Rock.
this whole aggravate?
Yeah, I don't know because the Rockies haven't officially announced this yet, so it's still pending. It's still reported. It's been reported by enough people that you're 99.9% positive this is what's happening. But everyone just keeps saying head of baseball operations. So unless the Rockies report otherwise, I'm going to just say he's going to be the president of baseball operations, which, like people have been saying, leads you to believe that there might end up being a general manager. Now, that a lot of times that doesn't actually happen. Look at what the Giants are doing. Buster Posey, president of baseball operations. He's the general manager and president of baseball. I mean, he does kind of it all. Nick in the chat says, could the Rockies still hire Otto as a GM? I don't know if Otto's going straight to a GM role, but I still go back to the idea that I think Otto would be great within the front office somewhere, whether it's like, head of the analytics department or something like that. Like that could be a good opportunity for Otto, but I'm glad they went with an experienced guy because you've got a guy who's just been around. He's been with big teams like the Dodgers as the general manager, and he's been with little teams like the A's who, kind of simulate the Rockies in this sense, and he's found ways to have success with both. So again, you just have a wide breadth of experience to fall back on as opposed to Adam Ottavino, who's like, hey, he's played for a long time and he's got a good approach to being a professional baseball player, but that doesn't always translate to being a good front office executive, as Derek Jeter shows us. And also, there's so many problems with the Rockies that need to be fixed. I would have a pretty good guess that this guy has some ideas on how to get the Rockies back on track.
Yeah, it feels like if we had this show on Tuesday and Paul was hired on Tuesday without the news of the guys dropping out of this race, I think we'd feel a lot better about that. So in my purple glasses take, which I always have, I'm going to say that he was just a candidate that wasn't named. I mean, he's in the middle of a football season, not a good one, as I've said a few times. I like to take my shots at the Browns whenever I can, but he's in the middle of a football season. So I don't know how well that goes over of like, if that gets out into the public that a guy running your organization or one of your heads of strategy is interviewing for a job in a different league. So maybe that was the whole time, and we just heard the baseball names because those two respective teams and those directors seasons were over. So I'm going to choose to say that, hey, this was one of the three finalists the whole time, or whatever we want to call it. And this is the guy that ended up getting hired. Yes, there's still some incompetence there, and there's still some unfortunate news with two guys turning down this job. But they found a guy that should fit this job in a hypothetical world.
Yeah, and look, I had said this earlier to Lux. I think this is better than other directions it could have gone. And where else could you have gone? You know, I mean, again, you don't want to go the former player route. And I think given some of the reports that were coming out about why those other two candidates dropped out, you know that those rumors start circulating. You know all those front office executives talk. I just find it hard to believe that like the top qualified executives in Major League Baseball are going to look at the Rockies job now after what has transpired with the last two candidates dropping out and saying, I want that job, right? And so that's where the concern was. That's kind of where we were crashing out on Tuesday, was like, who wants this job now? When this job first opened up, it was the possibility of, hey, you know, maybe the Monforts, maybe Walker's kind of taking charge and he's going to be different than his dad, and everything's going to kind of get headed in a different direction. And then those reports came out about Saez and Foreman and why they dropped out. And it's like, oh shit, they're going back the opposite direction, right? Same old Monforts. And so this to me feels like, given the optics, given the situation, it's somewhere in the middle. It could be worse, but it also could be a little bit better. But I think they found someone who at least you can say, hey, we'll just have to wait and see, right? We will just have to wait and see. And that's where we're at. So, man, I'm kind of excited. We at least have someone.
I'm excited too. And the thing that I want to say too is this hire being today, of course, absolutely hosing me. I'm glad it's before you went camping. Is like, that's a win. You know, I'm shocked it wasn't while you were camping, and I'm trying to throw together a show, and Colin Cowherd it by myself while you're camping and trying to kill a deer. But this hire being today signs to me that he was part of these interviews this whole time.
Yeah.
Like, there's no way that this all transpired between yesterday or whatever we actually found out. I think that was late Monday, whenever we found out that the GMs that we had heard were in the running had dropped out. They didn't just flip that in 24 to 36 hours and hire this guy. This guy was part of the whole thing the entire time, which is also encouraging. I'd like to believe that. You never know with the Rockies, but if logic stands a little bit of it's got to be he was part of it the whole time.
100%, man. I want to wrap things up here. We've been talking for about 30 minutes or so. I know you got to get back to the tailgate, because I think it's probably, Marissa is probably running the tailgate.
Your wife's working for me right now. It's great.
Yeah, I was going to say, she's probably running the tailgate. I don't know if that's a good thing.
Hank is right here watching our show, and he's like right by me.
Nice. I love it. Well, I'm going to get out there to the tailgate. We're going to have our next show on Tuesday, like normal, same show time. I'm going to be out hunting this weekend, but then I'll be back on Tuesday. So we'll have more reactions. Hopefully we'll have some more information on Tuesday as well. This is, again, just first reactions. So hang out with us on Tuesday at noon. If you've got questions, send them to us on Twitter. Shoot us a message, or jump in on Tuesday and come chat with us, because we're going to be reacting to this pretty much all off season, especially as they start getting ready to go hire a new manager and all that kind of stuff. We got a name, man. I'm excited. Thanks for jumping on, Spence. I'll see you guys out at the tailgate. Watch the DNVR Broncos pregame and postgame show. Those are coming up here soon. Broncos and the Raiders. Rockies made a hire. It's almost official, so we're excited. And Rockies Nation is, I don't know, feeling a little bit of optimism today. So yeah, we'll see you guys on Tuesday. Thanks for tuning in.
We all silly like the mayor.